Hello again, this is Victoria with Bonna Rabbits and More. If you've seen my last video, you got to see our very first unboxing video. And in that unboxing, we got some crested geckos. We have decided which one we're going to keep, and today I'm going to show you how to set up its enclosure. Now this enclosure is an 8 by 8 by 12, which is okay for juveniles for a couple months, but it will need to be upgraded into a taller tank. Ideally, they like at least a 20-gallon tall tank because they are arboreal, so they like to climb. First things first, let me show you what you're going to need. First, you're going to need an enclosure, of course. This one, like I said, is an 8 by 8 by 12, which is small for a crested gecko, but not for a juvenile. In a couple months, I'll be upgrading it to a 20-gallon tall enclosure. They are arboreal, so they like to climb. So they need something tall more than wide. The next thing you'll need is some decorations to go in your enclosure. All of these are from the Dollar Tree. And I know they're not real, but whenever I upgrade, it will have a few live plants in it because I plan on going bioactive when he gets older. Right now it's not necessary. I have some moss, which I got from my local pet store, and some coconut husk. So let's get this started. The first thing we're going to do is add in the substrate. We're going to put the coconut husk in first, which I've already got it moist because it comes in a block and you have to put it in water to hydrate it. And you don't want it to where it's wringing wet, you want it just where you like squeeze it a little bit and it clumps together. Then after I add that, I'm just going to smooth it out a little bit and add the moss. While I'm doing that, let me tell you a little information about the crested gecko. Crested gecko is a species that lives in the trees in the forests of New Caledonia. They can live up to 15 years. So if you get one, make sure that you are ready for that long commitment. And they are amazing, amazing pets. They usually eat a pre-prepared diet. I feed mine Pangea, which they seem to like a lot, especially if I mix it, because they have different flavors, and the flavors I usually choose papaya, and they like the kind that has the bugs mixed in. Now you can feed your crested geckos bugs, so they like roaches, like dubia roaches and red runners, and they also like crickets. And watching them chase crickets around the cage is one of the funniest things in the world. So a lot of crested geckos, which you'll hear people say, don't need a water dish in their enclosure because they drink all off of the leaves. So you hardly ever see them drinking water at the bottom of the cage. I don't agree with that, and it's just because I've put water in my enclosures in addition the bottom, and I've seen them drink out of them. So let me just go ahead and add this in there. I like to put it right here in the front so I can keep an eye on it. And then I will get the sprayer and mist the cage down. Just so if he does want to, or she, I don't know what the sex is of it yet because it's not quite old enough to sex yet. It won't be old enough for a couple more months at least. Another thing we need to talk about real quick is heat. Crested geckos like warmer temperatures. They are comfortable at room temperature as long as your temperature is between 72 and 80 degrees during the daytime, and at nighttime with a low of 65 degrees. That's the way they like it. If your house is colder or really hot, the heat might cause a problem if it's too hot, but if it's too cold, it's very bad for the crested geckos and they will have trouble surviving in those temperatures. So what I usually do is I take a heat mat and stick it to the side of the tank, so if they get cold, they'll go lay up against that heat mat. But you do have to check that heat mat regularly to make sure it doesn't get too hot to where it will burn them. Another thing you can do is put a heat emitter on top. They are nocturnal, so they do not like the light. So I would not suggest one of those bulbs that have the infrared lights in them, because whether people want to say it or not, they can see that light and they're not going to like it as much as a heat emitter. You can also give them UVB bulbs, which is also not necessary for them, but some people like them and some people don't. It's all about your preferences. And then there you have it. This is my finished crested gecko cage. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next week.